Dear grownups, if you've been on the receiving end of tiny teeth, you know how shocking and frustrating biting can be. But before you panic or you assume the worst, let's talk about why biting happens and what you can do when it happens. The first thing we're going to do is triage the situation. Our most basic job as the grown-up is to make sure that everybody is safe. So we're going to check on the person who has been bitten. Do they need any first aid? Do they need an ice pack? Clean the area, all of those things. Follow your protocols, get that taken care of. If the child self-bit themselves, you also want to do the same things. Are they okay? Do they need any first aid? And then we're going to move on to the next step. The next step is you need to find something appropriate for the child to bite. Yep, you heard me right. I know, it sounds very weird. Biting is the issue, right? Not really. What the child is biting is the issue. The actual act of biting in and of itself isn't criminal. It's what's being bitten is what we're most concerned with. Your child is needing to bite. We may not know the reason right now in this beginning, but don't worry, we'll come back to that. But what we know right now is they need to bite and they're trying to get that need met. The most immediate thing we can do for the child is give them something appropriate to bite. Ideally, this thing that they're allowed to bite should be something that they have access to. There are many great items on sensory sites for children to bite, and these withstand some of those sharp teeth that you may encounter. There's things like chewable jewelry, so necklaces, bracelets, there's chew tubes. There's a lot of things that they have available for you to purchase. You want to make sure that you're choosing something from a trusted site because you want to make sure that it's safe to be in the child's mouth, that it can't be bitten through. We just want to keep the child that is doing the biting safe as well because that's our basic job. I'll have some of these items that I suggest in the description notes. Of course, you need to make your best decision on that. And let me throw another little caveat in there. When you tell the child to bite the tube, you're going to do that in a very calm, neutral voice. The more amped up you get, the more excited, and if you shout it, it's going to cause the child to also gain some attention from that behavior. So not only are they getting that sensory need met, they're also getting their attention bucket filled. And we just want to avoid all of that. We just want to be as calm and neutral as possible. Bite the tube. Bite the tube. You can, if they're a little bit older, you can add some things like, I see that you need to bite the tube, or bite the necklace, whatever your replacement item is. In the past, you as the grown-up may have been contributing to keeping this biting behavior going by causing a big scene. Some kids love the big scene. They love the drama. They love that attention. So when you get all excited and scream or squeal about biting, then that's also filling another bucket and it's kind of perpetuating that biting behavior. So why is the kid biting anyway? Well, let's just think about it. You have this infant or this toddler who just has this new set of teeth that they're trying to get used to. So it absolutely could be a sensory issue. You could have some teething going on that you're trying to mitigate. Have you ever had a toothache or been to the dentist when you've gotten numb? When you go to the dentist and they numb you and they tell you, don't bite your cheek afterwards. That's because we have this sensation of something different in our mouth and our first reaction is to clamp down on our teeth. So it's normal. So if a child is teething, they're going to chomp down on their teeth. If anything is different in their mouth, they're going to try to alleviate that feeling, that sensation. And so biting may be one of those things. They may either be biting themselves, they may be biting another child, they may be biting items in the classroom. But that's one of the reasons why we see biting happen. Babies and toddlers don't have the best communication skills yet. It's just part of development. They haven't learned to use their words or to ask a friend for a turn or to tell a friend to stop. Biting is quick communication. It gets the message out loud and clear really fast. Either leave me alone, give it back, or back off. So it could be it's a really quick way for a child to communicate. Obviously, we want to teach them a better way to communicate, but that could be one of the reasons that they're biting. Some children need that sensory oral stimulation. So we've talked in other videos about sensory regulation and how things like proprioception, vestibular Oral stimulation is one of those things. So if we see that the child is doing a lot of oral stimulation things throughout the classroom, we can provide other ways for them to get that oral stimulation aside from just chewing on a tube. There's a whole bunch and a whole host of other things that you should absolutely talk to an occupational therapist about if you see this being an issue. However, infants and toddlers, this is what they do. I mean, that's why we have to monitor how big toys are, because children this age are always putting things in their mouth. It's kind of expected for them. They could be doing this to gain attention. So maybe they've learned that this is the quickest way for them to either gain the attention of the peers in the classroom or the adults in the classroom or their mom and dad at home or their siblings. It's a way to get attention. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to have that calm, neutral tone when we're intervening with biting. All right, so you know it's a situation. You know you have either a child that is biting their siblings, or you know you have a child in your classroom who is biting other children. What do? We've already told what happens when the biting is happening. And then you have to stay close to that child. We know that biting is an issue right now, and they're trying to work through that and find a replacement. So that means you have to maintain some proximity to that child. You need to make sure that you are close to that child whenever they get around another child, just so that way you can intervene and remind them to bite the other item. Ideally, you want to have that item on the child if it's safe to do so. So that way the child can begin to choose that item on their own and not depend upon an adult to provide that item. But in the beginning, you're still going to need to be close. You need to maintain proximity. So if a child is going to the block center and you can just feel some tension, you want to make sure you're close to the block center. You don't want to be way across the classroom because you can't get there fast enough. If your child is playing at the kitchen table or if your child is coloring at the kitchen table with their siblings, you want to be close at the kitchen table with the siblings because you want to be able to intervene if a bite begins or if the child looks like they're going to be biting. So how do you maintain proximity and anticipate a bite? Do you have a crystal ball that you try to figure out when the child's going to bite? Nope. You use some data. So what you're going to do is you're going to collect data on every time the child bites. You can do this on your phone. You can do this on a notepad. You can do this on a Post-it. I love to use an ABC data collection form, and there'll be other videos that'll tell you how to collect some ABC data. It's easy and it's so beneficial. But the reason why you want to collect data is you want to see, is this actually a problem? Biting feels like a problem in the moment. Biting feels like a problem when you have to tell the parent of a child that's been bitten that their child got bit that day. It is. It's alarming. We want to keep everybody safe. It's always going to feel a little bit more heightened than what it really is. And that's because we as grownups tend to over-exaggerate things. If biting happens once, that's one time too many for us. What we want to do is collect data and see how often biting is actually occurring. So is it happening twice a week? Is it happening once a month? Is it happening every day around lunchtime? We're going to collect that data, keep the date, the time, and the biting, and who the child bit. Did they bite somebody else? Did they bite themselves? Try to collect that data because then you're going to try to see if there's some patterns. Those patterns are going to tell you when you should intervene, when you should be providing proximity, and when the child may need that replacement biting item that you can have on the ready or make sure that they have ready for them. It's also going to tell you how to avoid some triggers. So you might see some common things that are triggering the child into biting. You may see that it's happening every day before nap time. Maybe that'll tell you that the child's tired and they're meeting a physical need through biting. You may see that it's every time a child takes a toy away from your child. Then we need to teach them some communication skills to prevent the other child from taking toys away instead of doing the biting. So it's going to give you a lot of clues on how to intervene. And it's also going to tell you how big of a problem is this. And let me just tell you, if you hire in an expert or you hire in a consultant like me to come in and talk with you about biting, it's going to be really helpful for us to see that data if you haven't already. When is biting occurring? How often is biting happening? What were the triggers and what happens right after the bite? What did the kid get out of the biting? Collecting that data is going to get you on the road to a solution much faster. So let me recap by saying, I get it. Biting is an issue. We don't want to let kids continue to bite other children. We don't want to let kids continue to bite themselves. We don't want anyone to be harmed. But what we do want to do is acknowledge that it is kind of developmental. If biting occurs past the age of toddlerhood, so into 3 years, 4 years, preschool, that happens, and we need to intervene a little bit more differently. It just means that those habits that happened in infants and toddlers have stuck, and they haven't gotten other avenues of either communicating or getting their sensory needs met. It's why early intervention is important, people. So we do want to intervene when a child is biting. Biting is not a moral issue when you're talking about a toddler. They just haven't learned a different way to get their needs met. We definitely want to intervene, but we want to do so with a way that's still meeting their needs. So what you're going to do is you're going to provide proximity. Stay around the child who is biting so that way you can help prevent the bite and intervene before they bite. Give them something that they actually can bite that is safe for them to bite. And stay neutral, stay calm. Bite the tube out. And you can tell them if they bite somebody else, that hurts. Biting hurts people. Biting is not bad. We need to bite into a carrot. We need to bite into an apple. Biting people hurts. Bite this instead. We want to avoid saying no biting, stop biting, because children at that age aren't comprehending that negative word before. All they hear is biting. So we want to say things like biting hurts people. That's okay. Biting hurts people. Bite this instead. Continuing to just tell them, very neutral, calm tone, bite this instead. It's going to take some time. Every intervention that you use takes time. Give it 2 weeks. Continue to collect that data. See if it's making a difference. Feel free to reach out to professionals. Find out what they have to say. But just know biting in toddlerhood is common. It's not fun, but it is common. Give them a different way to bite, collect the data, and remain neutral. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this and what other issues you're having. I can't wait to hear them. And if this episode was helpful for you, share it with a friend. It might help them also.